everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Good morning, everyone. It is the wettest and floodiest Monday you could imagine. It's so floody and muddy and awful. The drought.
It almost sounds like Witty and Wise, no? Floody.
Yeah, you're right. It does have it's got an adage. There's an adage birthing there somewhere, but it was pretty. That, of course, the darling Kim, everyone. Yeah, she's here. And Kim, we also, this is, let me just see something here. Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
There you go. All right. And Albert's here, everyone.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, what up, Albert? How about a weekend, Albert, with the Niners winning? We'll talk more about that. And Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
The magical Tony. He's already saved the universe once today, technically. He saves the technical universe. And he is here as well. Hey, thanks everybody who has joined us already in the chat and for getting the word out that we're on the air. If you hit the notification bell, it'll tell you every time there is a new video up. And now, increasingly in the new year, there'll be videos up beyond just the live show and beyond stuff just from the live show. So all of that stuff is still working. Wow, there is no question that beyond everything else going on, the weather in the Bay Area and California takes center stage. So we'll get to it in just a second. And this guy's so nice to spend time with us at all because he is put upon by so many different demands this time of year and through a scenario like this. Spencer Christian is going to join us in a second. I just do want to mention that coming up, bottom of the hour, it's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. It's our last installment on the Moskow, Idaho murders. The affidavit's been released, as you are probably aware. Many of you who follow this stuff closely are aware of some of the details. We'll share with all of you, those who follow it and those who don't follow it too closely, some revelations out of that affidavit. One of the revelations just in general is that cops knew a lot more than they were saying. So we'll get to that bottom of the hour. And then next hour, we have Law and Disorder. What else do we have, Albert, next hour? We have a big heist in Law and Disorder.
Yeah, Law and Disorder. We have a couple people to remember, those who have
passed on. You're right. I was looking at this show. We'll be lucky if we get it all in. We have there's a major EPA announcement, which sounds like a little thing, but it's actually going to be a very big deal. So there's a lot going on. Thank you for being here. Smash the like button like a boss, and let's get it on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, welcome a guy who, as I say, is so kind to spend some time with us. He's the great Spencer Christian, weather forecaster from Good Morning America and ABC 7, Bay Area institution now. So many mountains that he's climbed and put the big, what do you put at the top of a mountain after you climb it? A big
stake. I don't know.
The stake. Perfect. That's exactly what it was. The stake. All right, Spencer. This is rough. We've seen flooding. We've seen a continuation, I guess, of the same kind of weather scenario that produced the flooding last week. It's, as I say, it seems unrelenting. Fill us in, please.
That's exactly the wording I used last night on the air, Mark. This series of storms, this atmospheric river has been relentless. So now we've had our latest strong storm, a level 3 on that storm impact scale that we use, ABC 7. It looks like it's going to be followed by a storm tonight and early tomorrow morning that's not much lower in strength, a level 2, which will only compound the flooding threat and the mudsliding and all the other impacts that come along with these storms. Numerous trees down. People are still being evacuated, as you know. You talked about flooding in Sonoma County. I forget which town you mentioned, but on the Russian River at Guerneville, which is a location of great concern right now because of the population around that area. The river is supposed to reach flood stage, I believe, sometime between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. tomorrow. And at the moment, it looks like it's not going to rise much above flood stage. So minor flooding is likely there, but we're not expecting major flooding there. And a lot more rain will come with the storm coming in overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. Maybe another 1.5 to 2.25 inches on top of the 1 to 3 inches that this morning's storm dumped.
Wow, I as I look at the pictures that have that we're seeing now, I guess this is the Russian River. Was that the Russian River we were just seeing, guys?
Yeah, that was the Russian River.
Yeah.
I have video also of SoCal Creek, which reached flood stage, I guess, this morning. That was somebody's backyard. So
yeah. The residents have been evacuated, of course, and they know that they live in a floodplain, but that doesn't make the evacuation, the anxiety any easier. We saw the damage to Capitola. Santa Cruz is inundated and has had and sustained real damage. And there's continued anxiety for the reasons that you note, Spencer, that there is just more and more. And yeah, it was that level 5 storm, unprecedented apparently, as you were saying last week, that caused all the initial damage. I mean, devastating damage. But now these lesser storms, if you want to think of it that way, they fall on areas that have already been so devastated by the prior storm.
Exactly. And these lesser storms, and they are a little bit, weaker in strength, are still significant storms. It would be different if a level 5 was followed several days later by a little level 1, another level 1. But this was a level 3, and tomorrow will be a level 2. But if there's any encouraging news at all, it is that later in the week, not much later, in fact, either Wednesday and Thursday, or Thursday and Friday, we're supposed to just get some light shower activity up in the North Bay, just a little, trailing end of a frontal system sweeping through there. The rest of the Bay Area will probably get no measurable rain from those two systems. So there'll be about a 2-day break when we can begin to recover, to some extent. But it looks like Saturday, a fairly significant storm will be coming in. We haven't given it a number, a rating yet, like a 2 or a 3. But even after that 2-day break, we have more rain coming at the end of the week, over the weekend.
And we should just mention the Central Valley. I mean, Sacramento area and on down, they are getting pounded too. We talk about the Bay Area just because, that's where we have a lot of, we also have a lot of people watching in the Sacramento area and in the foothill region. It's rough going, man. I mean, they're getting every bit the slamming that we're getting on the coast.
Yeah. And we're getting all of the threatening and hazardous elements in one package for these storms, not just the heavy rainfall, but the powerful wind gusts, up to 60 miles per hour, blowing over trees and causing power outages. And of course, as you mentioned, with the saturated soil, even small amounts of rain on top of that, excuse me, will keep the flood threat going. I think today's flood advisory, I shouldn't say today's, the current flood advisory extends through tomorrow afternoon for the entire Bay Area, not just for isolated areas.
How are we along the coast today? Because I have a picture. This is Aptos. But I don't know. And I know a few days ago, the storms really pounded Capitola, shut down Zelda's, a popular restaurant, broke apart the Capitola Wharf. I'm wondering how we're doing with waves and the storm surge along the coast.
It probably will be, the National Weather Service will probably issue a hazardous surf or rough surf advisory today. I know we had one over the weekend that expired. I believe it was Saturday. And the wave heights have been up to between 25 and 30 feet high at the Bay Area beaches, which is very, very high. Normally, when we say elevated wave heights, we're talking 12 to 15 feet. These were 25 to 30 feet. They were crashing on shore and causing beach erosion and localized flooding. I would imagine with the wind that came with this storm, the waves have been whipped up again, but I haven't seen a high surf advisory yet. I would expect one to be issued, though.
There's a relationship. This is Spencer just mentioned it, and I don't know. I just throw this in there because not a lot of people are aware of it. But the relationship between waves and wind, that's direct, right? You understand the reason waves exist is because of wind. So the greater the wind, the greater the waves. And as Spencer's saying, you get wind like this, and you just have waves that are immense, and that's what we are looking at. The The reservoir situation is improving. It is not anything on the, this isn't a drought buster, believe it or not, but to the extent that, I mean, most of us are just kind of, hunkering down and not too worried about that yet. But you do keep an eye on the overall situation, and we will need a lot of this better in sort of longer stretches between storms to get out of the drought.
Yeah, we will. In fact, we had a couple of drought maps we used last week on the air. One showed the various levels of drought across the state before the recent rains, and then the various levels after the recent rains. The only major region of the state that moved up to a better level of drought was the San Joaquin Valley, the southern part of the Central Valley. It had been in, which one is more extreme? Extreme or severe? Whichever one is worse. It had been in that worse category. I guess that's severe. And then it improved to extreme flooding.
There is, yeah.
Did I say flooding?
The drought map reminds me of the COVID color coding, where we remember the early days of COVID. Well, we're in a purple.
Yeah.
Is that like, is purple bad or is purple better than yellow?
Yeah.
Yellow seems like it would be worse than purple. You know what I mean? You do that whole thing. But there is, I think the severity, severe is the worst, and then extreme is,
right.
I think, I
think you're right. So now the San Joaquin Valley has improved from the severe level of drought to the extreme level of drought. Yeah. But the rest of the state is still in, we're all still in a significant drought.
Yeah, it's and more to the immediate, and then I'll let you go. As you say, it's just going to continue this week. And by the way, I'll just say it: you thought they would get the Niners game in without rain, and it did happen that way. That's right. So props to you, sir. All right, Spencer, we'll probably put up the bat beam again to speak with you. I appreciate the information.
I love you. Thank you.
Listen, if you need me tomorrow, I'm here because it's going to be another day of weather to talk about.
We're going to hold you to that. I think we're going to need to check in. So,
before we let you go, I have a question for you. Do you feel like we're wimps in California?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, we get, I mean, I'm not making light of these storms because this has been something. I live in the North Bay and it's thunder and lightning at night and things we don't usually see. But do you feel like this is normal weather for other parts of the country, but when it happens in California, we just kind of go, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I'm from California. So to me, it's a big deal. But my husband grew up in Michigan, and to him, it's like, it's raining.
Yeah. Well, I understand. Yes, you're right. We are kind of wimps, weather wimps in California. I grew up in Virginia, and we used to get hurricanes and severe thunderstorms and wind blowing down trees. And I lived in New York in New Jersey for many years, and we got blizzards. So I'm happy that none of that happens here. But
Right.
But these rains, these recent storms are sort of out of the ordinary, though. So I'll give them that. We're not total wimps. We're just not used to this.
I mean, it's true that when it rains at all, we slow down. There are all sorts of actions. That's where we show our wimpiness.
Yeah.
Life-threatening weather. There is not a way that you can go, oh, well, those wimps in California. It's like saying after a quake, a huge quake. Huh.
Right.
A little quake. I mean, come on. This is we're talking about serious weather. So I don't think that, but I think it's true. Both things can be true. We are wimpy. A little drizzle does send us into like major anxiety for the weekend. This is a storm and a series of storm that is the real thing. So regardless, love you, Spencer. Talk soon, Spencer Christian. Everybody.
See you guys tomorrow. Okay.
Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, the weekend was filled with magic, wasn't it? Didn't we have a little magic from the Niners? What's the situation?
Yeah, across the NFL, it's the last week of the season, and teams were trying to make the playoffs. Everyone was trying to do the math. Teams lost their first round draft pick or their first overall draft pick in an epic win.
So, can you want to handicap what's going to happen in the playoffs, Commissioner? What the Niners?
I think we drew the Seahawks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we drew the Seahawks. We'll be playing them in the first round, and It's feeling good. It feels good. It feels great, baby.
The Niners have a good record against the Seahawks, don't they?
Yes, a very good record this season, and of course, our darling quarterback Brock Purdy did beat the Seahawks on a very injured oblique too. So he's a little more healthy this time around, and we're gearing up. Our players. We seem ready.
McCaffrey is something else, man, isn't he? He's really something. What an acquisition that guy was.
Yeah. So we have in our backfield, we have Christian McCaffrey, who's a stud, and then blocking for him is Kyle Juszczyk. So we got Harvard and Stanford.
That's right. You got an Ivy League.
Harvard and Stanford in the backfield. So we got a couple brilliant guys pounding the rock for us.
So they can probably do well on the essay part of the playoffs as well.
Yes,
if there's an essay,
exactly.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Well, thank you, Albert. Smash the like button for Albert.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Hit your thumbs up if you're watching in replay. That is the commissioner, Albert. I will tell you that the Law and Disorder that we have today, we've compiled it over the weekend. It's pretty terrific. It has different heists. A lot of different capers. Some are good, some are bad. All are interesting. And a major dude who was on trial now will not be tried. We'll talk about that, a high-profile guy. So that's coming up as well. I will tell you something else, Kim.
Yes, sir.
I have a new news theme for you. You know, I hated the old news theme. Hated it.
Yeah, I know you
we
did.
used it, and I used it,
it served its purpose.
Yeah, but the new news theme was done especially for us, composed for us by Eric and his crew over at Scorekeepers. And here it's kind of a sting. It comes in and you come in after it.
I'm trying to listen there to see when I'm going to jump in. It's like a jump rope, you know. You kind of have to pick your spot.
You don't in this case. You won't come in until it resolves, till it stings out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
There were other ways. He has a whole that came from longer pieces that are kind of that John Williams type. It's very Today Show, NBC Nightly News, John Williams theme kind of inspired. It's really great. But that little stinger, that is your
it turns me into a bit of a powerhouse is what it does.
We wanted something that had some punch. There was another one that we were considering, and this one was let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I can't locate it right now. But that one is better. That one is better. So I really like the fact that you're getting a new news theme for the new year. Smash the like button like a boss. What else did I want to tell? All the stormwater goes out to sea. Yes, it is dramatic. The farms are draining aquifers of water that rained 100+ years ago. That's not wrong, Chris. Chris is really right. The way we manage water in California is a problem. And the conservation of California by those of us who are consumers who live in generally urban areas, San Francisco, around the Bay Area, Sacramento, Los Angeles, the impact we have is oddly not substantial enough to affect water supplies. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't concern ourselves with conservation. But yes, you're right. The lion's share of the water in California goes to agriculture concerns. Now, at the same time, the lion's share of the economy of California is associated with agriculture. So there's a big chunk of the economic engine that is California that is agriculture. So in a way, you want them to get a lot of that water. But you want that water to be used smartly. And I think to your point, your first point, to the point of a lot of the water goes out to sea, that's the poor way in which we manage water in California. It's true. And I think it's indisputable. So I wanted to mention that just in terms of the environment, there was sort of a wild thing that I saw over the weekend. The EPA is going to strengthen the federal rules for one of the most dangerous and pervasive types of air pollution. This is fine particulate matter. We've talked about it before. They're proposing that the agency essentially restrict the allowed annual concentrations of that fine particulate matter. And the fine particulate matter is the stuff that gets into your lungs deep down and does real damage. All of this stuff is bad for you. All of this stuff, we get, lung cancers and all kinds of other cancers developed, as well as emphysema and other lung issues as a result of this stuff. But it's the fine particulate matter that gets way down deep. So Michael S. Regan, he's the EPA administrator, announcing that the agency intends to further restrict the annual concentrations of so-called PM 2.5, microscopic particles that are contained in diesel exhaust and in wildfire smoke and other emissions. They're known to trigger heart attacks and respiratory illness. This is a great, great thing. I talk about the fact that these are the protections that government can offer. You hear all the time, oh, those regulations, the burdensome regulations. Oftentimes, regulations are protections. Environmental regulations are environmental protections. And so I applaud this EPA proposal. It's not yet in place, but this is informed by thousands of scientific studies that consistently conclude that this fine particulate pollution is much more dangerous than they once thought. So it's good news today that they are moving forward with this. And yes, the Supreme Court has pushed back on the EPA's ability to even impose some of these regulations or protections. But the reality is, if this EPA standard can get through comfortably and not be challenged in the courts successfully, it would be a big step forward toward a sound public policy when it comes to these environmental pollutants. And they're killing us. I mean, how many people do you know are involved with cancer or in chemo and kids getting sick? And it's everywhere. It's in the water supply, in the soil. So the adverse health consequences are manifest. And this is terrific. I say bravo to the EPA. Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, the last in the installments of those things associated with the Moskow, Idaho murders. Boy, they knew a lot more than they were saying. You know, Kim, they were mum, and everybody thought, wow, small town cops, they don't really know how to handle this.
They were doing it right.
They had this dude way identified. And
but that's good. That's really good, because you don't want to show your hand. You don't want to tip people off. And it's hard with a case like this, with this much notoriety, not to want to, go out there and do the press conferences and be in the limelight. But they did what they were supposed to do. They kept their heads down and worked the case.
Yeah, it's true. There's a tendency now, particularly in the new media environment, to try to get your case out there. Look how hard we are working. There's Ron here in forensics, and there's Mary here who's working on the street. And there's such a gaggle of people in front of cameras typically, and there's a demand on the part of the media to get some information. And then what do? If you don't have information, they go, look at this small town crew. They don't know what they're doing. But, then they bring in pundits who say, well, the problem with small towns is they don't, you have to be able to tolerate all that while you actually have an investigation going on that as we saw, they identified this guy, and it was really going to be quite successful once the announcement was made. Now the affidavit and the arrest all happened, and we'll have that for you in just a few minutes. Courtney is coming, and we're not sure yet about David Katz may weigh in as well. So, Steve is right. Good that there were no leaks and all of that. I mean, that's another thing. You could have leaks in that investigation. But can I talk to Steve Moskowitz, and then I'm going to then we'll get on to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for Steve Moskowitz, everybody? Yeah. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mark.
It is the new year, and wow, I'm talking to more people who are considering going into some kind of small business. The one I hear the most is the eBay thing. They're talking about divesting themselves of various things. They have a lot of stuff around the house, or these storage lockers where we collect a lot of things. We just did a story about that last week. And they want to make it into a growing sort of business. That's where I feel as though people may not realize Moskowitz LLP, Steve Moskowitz, you can do that. You are critical in setting up a business.
Absolutely. And, sometimes from the smallest acorn, the greatest tree goes. I remember when I started out, I had a job in a big firm, and I started doing tax returns on the side. I would go to people's apartments in New York, sit down at their kitchen table with a physical pencil and a physical piece of paper, do their tax return, say, here you go. They would pay me a fee, and off I went. And that was my side hustle. And then the side hustle grew, and then it grew some more. So, I respect that. And look at all the giant businesses today that start out in somebody's garage. But absolutely, there's all kinds of things you can do. One of the things you want to do is protect yourself, because if things don't work out, you don't want to lose everything that you have. And then if things do work out, why pay more taxes than you have to? The big boys don't. So there's so much we can do. And that's why we've been talking about these business services, because a starting out business or even established business really can't afford, in most cases, to hire a full-time person in all the different services we offer. And you don't need it. So instead, we come in, we give you just what you need at a fraction of the cost of a full-time person, but you have everything you need. It works out beautifully.
Yeah, I really think that's just the magic of Moskowitz, is that you can get as much as you need and no more. So the idea that you commit to some huge thing, that doesn't have to be with Steve. You can talk to him about what's appropriate for you. So if you're launching a business, maybe you have a business, make sure your taxes are in order. Make sure your exposure is not greater than it needs to be. And as Steve says, make sure your legal exposure isn't more than it needs to be. So reach Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL. Say, hey, I saw you talking with Mark, and I just wondered, I had some questions. I'm just kind of putting my toe in the water. Will you take a look at this? I'm just a sole proprietor or a small business person. Again, 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL. And of course, on the web, knock around the website. It's MoskowitzLLP.com, MoskowitZ, Moskowitz, LLP.com. Steve, thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Talk next hour. Steve Moskowitz. Right on, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
When we come back, we're going to talk about that Moskow, Idaho case. We'll really get into it. Smash the like button like a boss. Don't do it for me. Do it for Kim McAllister. Kim's news next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. I love it. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Forecasters are putting today's storm at a level 3, down from the historic level 5 last week, but sure seems like we're still getting a lot of that rain. This is a picture of the Russian River in Guerneville, expected to hit flood stage later today into the evening hours, as we heard Spencer Christian with ABC 7 say. It's not going to be pretty there, and they're warning people in the low-lying areas to leave if at all possible. We're going to see some powerful winds, too. The National Weather Service warning the winds could get up to 60 miles an hour around the bay shoreline, even stronger along the coast. That means roads will be especially dangerous, with more trees and more power lines expected to fall. Speaking of the areas along the coast, Mill Valley, don't drive into the flooded areas. This is somebody that had to be rescued. This picture we showed you earlier, and this is in Windsor. Crews having to rescue someone who tried to drive into a flooded intersection. And this is what happens. They're warning people, don't drive if you don't need to. If you do need to, don't drive into flooded areas. It really could be dangerous for you. Highway 17 is closed because of a mudslide. Here we are yet again. We've got mud and debris flow down into the lanes of traffic. Speaking of the South Bay, San Jose on alert for possibly the worst flooding in years. The National Weather Service warning the Guadalupe River right at the Almaden Expressway, will likely top minor flooding levels this morning at almost 10 feet, then reach close to 12 feet as heavy rains continue on this afternoon. If that happens, experts say the water would spill north along Lelong Street, flood the viaduct at Highway 87 and Alma Avenue, and maybe even some homes in the Northern Cross neighborhood. So that is something that we are looking at as well. In Sonoma County, we are again bracing for what could be just awful along the Russian River again. As a matter of fact, the prediction from the fire district chief thinks the water might bury some homes and businesses, cut off access to roads. He calls it a catastrophe, a possible catastrophe. Many in Guerneville have been stacking sandbags, hoping they don't have to leave. Video, though, already shows creeks and lagoons, which normally take overflow from the Russian River, are now reaching the top of their banks. There's still a lot of people around the Bay Area without power. As of 9 o'clock this morning, there were about 8,500 customers without power in the North Bay, 5,000 on the peninsula, 2,000 on the East Bay, fewer than 1,000 in the South Bay. But PG&E says they are scrambling to restore power as storms continue to batter the state. Governor Gavin Newsom's office urging people to stay prepared. He says 12 people have already died in these storms in the last week around the state. Forecasters say the system is expected to bring strong winds and heavy rain until Tuesday. Let's move to politics now, where the special grand jury in the state of Georgia is still looking into former President Trump's efforts to reverse his 2020 election loss in the state, but they say they are done with their work now. The grand jury has completed its final report. It will now be up to the Fulton County District Attorney to decide whether or not to file criminal charges in this case. It's been a nice year for the fine people at Rolls-Royce. You know, either you got everything or you got nothing. I'll tell you. Rolls-Royce celebrating a banner year for sales in 2022. The British luxury car maker chalked up record sales with more than 6,000 vehicles snapped up by the wealthy last year. The growth comes despite sticker prices averaging over $500,000 and a drop in Chinese demand as well. But more people are buying them. Look at that. Man. Fancy.
Have you seen them rolling around like Silicon Valley or anywhere in the North Bay?
I don't think I have. Have you? Do you have a lot of Rolls Royces?
I haven't. I don't know what that was. I haven't seen them at all, and they feel like a little showy for the tech bros. You know what I mean? But so I'm thinking of where the money is. Like, you don't find those in Pack Heights in the city, or, you know what I mean? Everybody's a little, like, that's a little too showy. Do you agree with me on this or not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, where are they? Where would they be? New York? Like, I don't know where the
Hills, New York.
Oh, okay.
LA. I think LA, honestly. I mean, LA, make $1, pin it on your shirt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's a kind of quality of there's no such thing as being too ostentatious in Los Angeles.
If I had all the money, if the Mega Millions went my way and I had all the money, I don't think I would buy a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good looking SUV.
What's your fancy car? Like, what would be your splurge?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have one. I'm not super. Courtney's here. You know me. I'm not a super car person. I don't think that way.
Well, you like fast cars.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, you know, it's a typical...
Fast cars and fast women.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the exception.
Wow, that is really
what?
Okay, let's anyway, moving on.
Okay, I'll throw the last story out here because little pooper. Yeah, so dog owners can now buy a Fitbit for their pets. The new Animo $150 GPS tracker provides location along with activity and behavior monitoring with no monthly fee. Clips right onto your pet's collar, can alert the owner in seconds if the dog leaves a safe zone. It also keeps stats on sleep, barking, scratching, and shaking. Now, pet moms can be helicopter moms too. It will even send owners a notification when it detects a notable change in behavior.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. But he's so cute. I just want him. The news sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can reach him on the web at moskowitzllp.com. And I will say that if you have, or you're experiencing storm damage, you have pictures from the last couple of days of something that happened, please email me. It's kimmcallister@gmail.com, 2 M's, 2 C's, 2 L's. And we'll use it during the news and show people what's going on at your house. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
What up, everybody? It is our Monday, wet and flooding and pretty brutal out there.
Yep.
Be careful. They're saying, actually, authorities are saying, don't even go out there.
Yeah, you don't need to, don't do it.
You don't need to, don't travel. Smash the like button like a boss. That's our thing here. And if you want to join us, you can hit us with a super sticker and a super chat. You join us in the effort to keep this stream going on the air. And that's done, honestly, with your help and your support. And you've been great so far. So thank you for everybody who has done everything from like the show with a thumbs up, or to, if you're watching a replay, if there's a little heart, you can, with a $, you can leave a little contribution, or you've actually become a patron and you've gone to PayPal or Patreon and supported us that way. Sadly, I have to pitch for money. I'm not used to pitching for money. You know, on the old station, I could just go on and do a show. Now we have to make you, and efforts associated with helping us, we have to make that happen. So that's what I do. That's why we pitch as we do. On Mondays, we like to feature news of mysterious murder. It's the world of true crime. Yes. And this, my friends, is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
And joining us for Mark's Murder Mystery Monday is Courtney, everyone. Yep.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Courtney.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
And I would also say that we are really lucky because, and this is a discovery we made in a conversation we normally had with him. This guy has defended people accused of murder and knows a lot about the details of this case and others. And he brings the legal perspective with such expertise. He's the former assistant U.S. District Attorney. He's David Katz, everybody who's here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Double whammy.
Yeah. Pretty good
Professional
company.
joins us.
Good morning, David Katz.
Hi, it's great to be with you guys. And in the case where I defended the person charged with murder, the charges were dismissed. I want that clear.
Yeah,
I would have represented him either way. I would have represented him either way it had come out, but I was obviously very pleased, and so was his family and his 2 kids about that result. But he was someone who had a phone ping, and of course, in the Kohlberger case, there's an allegation about phone pings too. So, Mark.
Yeah, it's critical that so David actually has then history with this particular thing. So, Courtney, share a couple of the details that have come out now that the affidavit's been opened.
Okay, so I'll go over a couple of the arrest affidavit notes.
Turns out the cops knew a lot more than they were saying, huh?
Yes, the cops knew a lot more, and I think that the sort of prevailing idea was like that they were kind of not equipped to handle something like this. But of course, they had the help of sheriff's office, state police, and the FBI. So it was a strategy to make it seem as if they didn't have as much information as they did. So to summarize some of the points of the affidavit, DNA was found at the scene on the sheath of the knife sheath on the button, and they were able to match that at a 99.99% accuracy or connection to family members of Brian Kohlberger. In fact, it might have been his DNA because we know that they took some of the trash from his house that he had thrown out at 4 a.m. with gloves on in his neighbor's trash. as one does when they're not hiding from a murder.
Well, and they knew that based on, they saw that on video. Is that where they saw him? That wasn't surveillance. That
was surveillance.
It was surveillance. So they literally saw him take a bunch of stuff, which was clearly evidence, and put it in a neighbor's trash bin.
Well, it was trash from his home, that he was putting in a neighbor's trash bin. I don't know what was in that trash, but he was clearly hiding something.
Okay.
They also, in the surveillance, they saw him cleaning out his car. So he was doing a deep clean of his car. Now, whether he had cleaned it before in Washington, it's not known, but he did do a deep clean of his car once he reached his parents' house. So DNA was found on the sheath of the knife at the murder scene next to one of the victims. They connected that back to his family. Cell phone data, as we just mentioned, had him around the house at least 12 times before the murders. And he would generally go late at night, early in the morning. And then the night of the murders, it has him traveling toward Idaho from Washington. And then he shuts off his phone for 2 hours, right around when the murders happen. And I think he left the murder scene, it's alleged, at 4:20, and his phone goes back online at 4:48, somewhere in Idaho as he's leaving to go back to Washington. There's also some cell phone data that shows him traveling from Pullman to Johnson, Idaho. And why that's important is in Johnson, there's a national forest and park. And so they think that that might be where the murder weapon was left. And his phone was off for 3 hours the day of the murder, or the day after the murder. Well, I guess the murders happened at 4 a.m. So the day of the murders is when he went to Johnson. And that was when those phone pings alleged that he was out there doing something. And then the Hyundai Elantra. What's really interesting about the Hyundai Elantra is actually it was captured on video, surveillance video and video.
Right, they were looking for that car, right.
Yeah, but it was actually 2 Washington State University police who connected the car to Brian Kohberger.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You mean, was that, those were, they called in type thing? Those were call-in tips?
No. So the police came out, I think it was on November 25th, asking for help in with this car, and talked about a white Hyundai Elantra between the years of like 2013 and 2016. And so 2 Washington State University campus police officers identified a white Hyundai Elantra being registered to Brian Kohberger, and that officer's name is Daniel Tiengo. And then Curtis Whitman, who's another officer, identified the car outside of Brian's apartment.
Wow.
And so they gave that information to the police in November. There's also pings of him stalking, as I mentioned. So I've already talked about that. And then I talked about Johnson, Idaho. So the big things in the case.
Before I'm going to cut you off, but I was just going to mention to David, it's just odd. This guy who's a criminology student, PhD student in this stuff, would make he did everything but autograph the crime scene. It seemed, between the pings and using the same car to get away, and then of course his DNA is on that knife sheath. It's because you're not used to killing people in cold blood, I guess, when you're a murderer, David, that you get sloppy.
Well, that's a good point, of course. And, nowadays with modern forensic techniques, he tried to, it appears, leave less evidence, but he left so much evidence. He obviously didn't mean to leave behind the knife sheath, but there must have been a struggle like in the bed or something. I heard that it was found in the bed. So there was a struggle. There was probably blood by this time. He'd done what he'd done. And then to go back and retrieve the knife sheath, he didn't think of it. I mean, certainly if you're the prosecution, that's your theory. So many things happened. They were so traumatic, PhD criminology student or not. He did some other things, as was just being described, like turn off his cell phone. But of course, turning off your cell phone doesn't matter. If you have your cell phone with you, it's going to ping. It's going to, not ping, it's going to show where it is, even turned off. That's my understanding of it. If you don't take the cell phone with you at all, but nowadays people are so used to their cell phones, they don't leave home without them. And apparently he didn't leave home without it. He hoped that by not turning it on right in that area, it wouldn't show that he was in that area. But how foolish, right? Because if it shows you going to that area and then it's off, and then it shows that you haven't left the area, and then you turn it on again, leaving the area, you've not only given them a huge piece of evidence along with everything else, but you're really showing your intent. You're showing your thinking. When he tries to make a mental defense, or he makes some other kind of defense, these things will show that he was in fact acting very willfully and very, with a lot of, that he was with it a lot more, that he was not so traumatized or so mentally deficient throughout this that he wasn't thinking of ways to get away with it. The prosecution will use that against him too.
Yeah, David makes a good point. I mean, his legal avenues are pretty much limited since he put a lot of work into all of this sort of premeditated nature of this, or trying to get covered up. Go ahead.
Yes. And no, exactly. I mean, also requesting to have an internship with the Pullman Police Department for the fall of 2022. That was done over the summer. Yeah, those are all things that indicate premeditation around this event. The things that I read actually from a defense expert, and they didn't elaborate as to why he was a defense expert, but he was saying that this isn't a slam dunk case, that in fact be very difficult for Brian's defense to claim insanity because he was a scholar and he was going to school. He had, from what they knew, no like recent history of anything that the DNA could be transferred from one person to another. So the DNA was actually not a slam dunk, that there was no murder weapon, that there was only a vague description from an eyewitness about who the murderer was. And also they had no clear-cut motive that connected him to the murders. So that's what one expert said. As
I don't know, David. David was just saying that he doesn't really have much of when it comes to a defense. David, he seems to be on thin. I know nothing, but that's why you're here. Tell us. I mean, is there a defense that one could be? I guess there's always something that can be cobbled together.
Well, I think that his attorneys, who are public defenders there and experienced, they have a duty to put on the most zealous defense that they can for him within the bounds of ethics, and I'm sure that they will. And of course, that some defense expert, argues the other side of it, argues the defense side of it. That's just normal. I could right now argue both sides of it. But I think looking at it from what we've seen so far, he's in very difficult shape. And one of the reasons he's in very difficult shape is, first of all, you don't have to have a motive. A lot of people don't realize that. It helps the jury to understand the crime was committed beyond a reasonable doubt, to also say it was done, according to some motive that makes sense. But they don't have to prove one. And I think that there's certainly a lot of people following this case have a working idea of a motive, that he stalked either one or more of these young women. He was obsessed and infatuated. He was planning to just stalk and maybe watch. And then when they came home from that party, maybe he was himself drunk, or maybe he was on something. For some reason, whatever had stopped him from going forward and just watching and stalking before, he went in. And maybe in his delusions, not criminally defense illusions, but in his delusions, he thought, well, this would actually go somewhere. We'd have a chat. It'll all be nice. And she or the other people were horrified. And all of a sudden, his fantasy, fell apart, that this was going to be nice. It was suddenly awful. And then the assault ensued, that people made some noise. They did indeed wake the person downstairs, or upstairs. That's why that person was downstairs. That person was still up to see him. She may have been drunk herself. She's the one who's still alive. So he killed the 4 people. They didn't make enough noise to do anything but wake up one of the people downstairs. They did wake up the person downstairs, and he decided by then to get out of there and not to assault her in the first minute he saw her. She ran into the room, right? She barricaded herself in there. For whatever reason, she apparently didn't call 911. He got out of there as fast as he could. They talk about a car that was leaving at a high rate of speed. He turns his phone back on. That's him. He figures maybe he's going to figure out what's going on. Maybe he's going to get an app that gives him the police radio. And he goes back home. A few days later, he changes the registration of the car. He goes to the place in Johnson, whatever it was, to do whatever he did. He throws out trash later on when he gets home. I don't know. It seems like a very tough case to me, and it all comes back, or a lot of it comes back, to that nice sheet. Yeah. It's 99.99% clear that it's his DNA there. He's inside that house. What's he doing there? The jury's going to say, I know what he was doing there. He was killing those 4 people, and he actually did it with a premeditation to stalk them. And it's no defense that he hoped that it was going to be a nice encounter, and it very rapidly became a murderous encounter. That's not going to be a defense that they're going to take seriously. One last thing, they say that there's no insanity defense in state law in Idaho, that it's been abolished. I'm not so sure that you can abolish the insanity defense. In California, we make a notice of defense that you're not guilty by reason of insanity. Apparently, you can't make that defense in Idaho, but you can certainly rebut the evidence that you acted willfully, premeditatedly, intentionally by showing through experts and through compelling testimony that you had a mental defect, that you truly were insane or had a mental defect. But that is itself a very high defense standard. It's batted back and forth who has the burden of showing it. But whoever has the burden, the reality is the defense has to make a compelling showing to get a jury to think that you were insane or acting with diminished capacity or diminished actuality so that they will find you not guilty. A very high showing for the defense. All of us who've watched these horrible murder cases that have a mental defense realize that they have had a very high threshold for the defense, whoever technically has the burden of proof.
Wow. Yeah. So he has an uphill climb, Courtney, is what David's saying.
We can only hope justice is served. So that's good to
It is a mystery. David alluded to it. Why she didn't call the woman who had barricaded herself didn't call 911. Why were there no call? I mean, the guy went back to the crime scene at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there still had been no 911 call.
Yeah,
he
was no
expecting
call.
to see,
He was expecting to see police and yellow tape, and there was nothing. So he went and got coffee and went to Albertsons and then ended up going to Johnson. And those notes are in the affidavit. So they're important. They're in there for a reason. But imagine he went back to the murder scene between 9 and 9:12, I think roughly, and there was nothing there. It's interesting that she didn't call the police. Now I've heard a couple ideas around why she didn't, and apparently Steve Goncalves, who is Kaylee Goncalves' father, said that she was scared to death and that she passed out or something to that effect. And I think there was maybe something that happened that morning when the two young women woke up, saw the bodies, called 911, and it was the operators couldn't hear or understand what they were saying. So that might have been why they called for an unconscious person at the house. But remember, the call was made at 11:58 in the morning. So, David, do you have a thought on that? I mean, is there in all of your casework and all of the things you've been exposed to, can there be that long a delay on a brutal murder like that? Why wouldn't someone, in this case, this woman who had barricaded herself in that room, why didn't she call 911? There's no call for all those hours.
Well, of course, it's conjecture, but she might have been very inebriated, right? And she might have just woken up when she heard the noise upstairs, and she wasn't sure if it was a bad dream or what it was. And then she sees that person go by. Now, of course, at that point, you or I would think it's not a bad dream. Here's a person with bushy eyebrows and a mask on coming down the stairs after the noise upstairs. But I assume that she was just very groggy, that maybe she was inebriated, and she fell back asleep. Part of it might have also been that she was terrified. She kind of didn't want to know what it was, and she sat there kind of traumatized. And then sleep overcame her again, and then she woke up again in the morning. And then supposedly she and the other person didn't know that something horrible was going on upstairs. We've had this reporting that the police came upon this, not knowing what they were really going to find over there, and then they found this scene of horror with 4 dead bodies.
It's an extraordinary, to me, that's in a series of extraordinary things that happened. Like he got in, he was able to do this, that there wasn't more of a problem him getting out. The entire thing, David is onto something. They might have really been so drunk or messed up that's sort of helped this guy get away with it, Yes, potentially, definitely. Yeah. Dylan was on the 2nd floor. She was right by the stairs, actually, that he came down from the 3rd. She locked her door. I don't know much about what happened with Bethany. So it's unclear to me at what point Bethany was involved. Bethany Funk was she was on the 1st floor. So she was the 4th roommate who was on the 1st floor. So now he's been extradited to Idaho, and he's in Idaho, and David would know better some of the processes, but I think the next court date is January 12th. Wow. So it's David, this will be interesting.
Mark, one thing, he apparently has not entered a plea yet. It's expected that at the next hearing, he'll enter a plea of not guilty. Then they'll probably set some dates. These cases do tend to take a long time, and people sometimes are frustrated that they take a long time. But, there are scientific tests that have to be done. Then the defense gets access to the evidence, and they have a chance to forensically test it. Those tests take some time. Then there are motions, of all sorts. There are other witnesses that they need to get. Sometimes they need to go to other states to get cooperation. It's not a federal case, so the state will need cooperation from other states. I'm sure they'll get it, but it takes a little bit of time, right? Idaho has to deal with the authorities in the state of Pennsylvania, maybe the authorities in the state of Washington. So expect this trial to go, I don't know, at least a year from now, maybe more.
Wow. Okay. Hey, David, thank you for answering the call. Really cool to have you in the mix on this. You're so so gifted with the law, and never expected that you would be such a great resource on this. And of course you have been. So David Katz, everybody. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Great to be with you guys.
Yeah, enjoyed it. So that's David Katz and Courtney.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you, Mark.
nice job
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you're moving on. You're closing the book on this, though, right?
Yes. I have to thank your fans, your listeners, your viewers, because they have been sending me stories, mostly on Twitter and through email. Calvin's been really helpful. California Fireman. Oh, Sheila. I'm really grateful that people are sending me stories, especially those that are unsolved, that we, might be able to cover and bring attention toward, and just that they appreciate this segment. So thank you. And if you want to send something to me, I'm at Kovacevic on Twitter. So.
Well, how can I possibly spell that name? I mean, that's very difficult.
I know. It's Kovacevic.
Kovacevic. Got it. Okay. Yes. Did Joe Box send you?
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Little Anthony. I mean, those guys know a little something about.
No, I don't think so.
Fat Andy didn't.
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
No, he didn't.
No, but they're welcome to send me anything.
All right. Well, it's very cool that you can join us, and this has become what it has, a very popular segment, Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, and that is the segment.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Bye, Courtney. Nice job. We will continue, and in the next hour, we have a pretty substantial law and disorder. Things going on that went on over the weekend, on Friday after we got off the air. So I'll share some of those with you. A couple of them are in the heist category. So there's that. You can reach us at the website, which I think is, which is a good place to. I know what the website is. I was going to say, which is a good place to reach us. It's themarkthompsonshow.com, and you have to write themarkthompsonshow.com, because if you don't put "the" in there, you end up on a ventriloquist website. And look, you got a party going on or something like that. I'm sure he's great. Maybe you want to knock around that website for a while. But to reach us, it's themarkthompsonshow.com. You can email us at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. By the way, that's the way you contribute. themarkthompsonshow.com. You see those two tabs. One is for Patreon. One is for PayPal. And that's how you support the show. So I appreciate it. I mean, that's how we stay on the air. Honestly, we're essentially a crowd-funded show. So as long as the crowd is funding us, we stay on the air. Crowd stops funding us, we're not on the air anymore. So it's Patreon and PayPal, and of course, super stickers and super chats here in the YouTube universe. So good to be monetized again. There's that as well. A whole big hour spilling over with content. We'll start with Law and Disorder, and that will follow Kim's News. All of that next as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And Kim's new news theme, everybody. Come on. Oh, I love it.
It's kind of exciting. Right. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's get right to the flooding. It's another storm lining up to hit the Bay Area. In the South Bay here, the National Weather Service has listed the San Lorenzo River at Big Trees at major flood stage. Police putting emergency closures into place for part of Highway 1 south of River Street Because of this logjam, you can see here right at this freeway overcrossing as the San Lorenzo River continues to rise. There are streams and rivers all over the Bay Area where people live nearby that are currently under evacuation warning. So pay attention in your region, in your area, if that is affecting you. CHP Santa Cruz Division had to make several rescues this morning. They are warning people. This is Graham Hill at Mount Herman, which is flooded. They say, hey, if you don't have to be out driving, don't drive into waterways like this. If it looks flooded, just don't do it. Yeah, it's bad. They're urging residents, don't attempt to drive through flooded areas like this. They don't want to have to rescue you as well. They will, but they just don't want to have to. Officials with South Lake Tahoe are meeting with the officials from Heavenly Mountain Resort. Officials are saying that they need to discuss mountain access to try to prevent the recurrence of what happened on January 2nd, which was just a massive traffic jam and a big mess. There were power outages. There were fresh powder and major holiday visitors to the mountain. Apparently quite a mess. And so they're trying to prevent that in the future. Lots of snow in the Tahoe area as well. Here's what it looks like. This is from ABC7, and they are reporting flood stage for Russian River in Guerneville at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, so coming up this morning, and then it will recede with some minor flooding. So that's what it looks like now. Keeping my eye on this big time because this affects a lot of people living along the Russian River, businesses, homes. This whole community could be cut off by flooding. So that's something that we are watching. A bipartisan group of senators set to meet with law enforcement officials and community leaders at the southern border today. That's where a tent city has been set up. The group includes North Carolina Republican Tom Tillis, Delaware Democrat Chris Coons, Arizona Independent Kristen Sinema, and others. The visit to the U.S.-Mexico border follows President Biden's first ever visit as president over the weekend. And now to Prince Harry. His highly anticipated memoir called Spare will be released tomorrow. The autobiography promises to reveal the circumstances of Harry and his wife's departure from their royal duties, as well as some rarely publicized details about his extended family. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have previously spoken out against the royal family in several widely publicized interviews and on a Netflix docuseries as well. So again, Spare comes out tomorrow.
Do you, I don't mean to, I don't really care about that stuff as much. And I saw him on 60 Minutes. I guess he gave a longer kind of back and forth on British television or whatever. But so I believe him, when he says all this stuff. But then I talked to Courtney, who follows this stuff. She said, no. He is absolutely someone who's exploited his position with to me, he's a sympathetic character. And yet she says, no, don't be sucked in. What do you think?
I feel like he has every right to slink away quietly and live the life he wants to. I don't begrudge him that. And I feel like if he needs to keep his wife safe and his family safe, and he's scared about what happened to his mom, and he sees his wife being, beaten up in the press, and he feels like he needs to check out from his royal duties, that's one thing. But what's the real reason that you need to go and publicize stuff? Why do you need to he says that his family keeps releasing stories in the media that makes them look bad. Well, who cares? You're out. You can be out of the public eye now if you want. You don't need to hit back. And so I think it just makes it worse, and it keeps it in the media. It
makes you wonder how legit is the point. Grievances really are. Hey, Harry, at some point, it's on you, as you kind of would have implied.
It would have been classier if he had checked out and just kept quiet, or done projects that he wanted to do and really not talked about his family much.
The other thing I didn't realize, and this again, because I don't follow it that much, and then we can move on, is that he had, and they did, insist on keeping their royal titles. And that is like, if you really wanted to just wash your hands of that whole scene, wouldn't you get rid of your royal title? So much did they hang on to the real title. Again, I didn't know this till last night. I was talking about it with Courtney. She said that in a profile, like in Vanity Fair. It wasn't Vanity Fair, but some magazine like that. They talk about Meghan, and the apparently their office said, no. When you talked about Meghan, you must call her the Duchess of whatever. You don't refer to her just you have to refer to her with her royal title. So
either
if you're
you want it or you don't.
Away from royalty, exactly. You don't, either you want it or you don't. Exactly.
Either you want it or you don't. It's like if I wanted to be called the news anchor on the Mark Thompson show, but I didn't want to do the work. No, either you're in it and you've got the job and you're doing the job, or you're checked out and you don't really care what they call you anymore. And I'm all for him, if she wants to get back into acting and be in the public eye, whatever, that's fine. But, don't make documentaries about the royal family and everything else, because then what you're doing is you're saying with one breath, I don't want to be in the public eye. My family's in danger. Oh, but let's keep talking about it. So my family's in the public eye and in danger, right?
Yeah, that's so true. That's very well put.
Good day, sir.
Exactly. Good enough already.
What was it? Reminds me of Shadow the other day when he was like, everyone was clapping and he's like, stop with one hand, but come on with the other. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, pick what you want, because we can all see through it now. But having said that, I think he's a really cool character. I mean, I like him. I like what he's done with the Invictus games. I think he was truly involved in the military and tries to take care of military members that have been injured on the line of service. So there's a lot of good things about him, but I just, it's not believable when you're still trying to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having said that, here's Butthead, Beavis and Butthead's Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, that's not very news person of you.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Pull out the whoopee apology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Republican.
Yeah.
Stand corrected. It's not very professional.
How are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Republican Matt.
Okay. All right.
Or did I? Republican Matt Gaetz is getting an apology from an Alabama congressman. Mike Rogers was seen lunging at Florida's gates after tensions boiled over late Friday night during the election for Speaker of the House. Republican Rogers tweeted he regretted losing his temper, while Gaetz responded by saying, Rogers has his forgiveness.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, everything's all okay in Republicanville. Bottle Rock. Oh, yeah. The lineup for the 2023 Bottle Rock Festival announced today. It will be, are you ready? Drum roll. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Post Malone, Lizzo, and Duran Duran, Lil Nas X, the Smashing Pumpkins, Wu-Tang Clan, Carly Rae Jepsen, Sheryl Crow, among all the performers. Yeah, this is a 3-day festival, takes place between May 26th through 28th in Napa, and it is expensive to go to this show. I'll tell you.
How much is it?
Like $500 or more, thousands of dollars. If you're gonna go, you gotta go have the experience, right? And that means then you get the VIP experience, which costs even more when you get to go to the wine tasting.
We gotta go high. Oh, yeah, I see.
Otherwise, what's the point of going if you're not going to get up there up front? Stay home and catch video clips on YouTube, because either go or don't go. But yeah, Bottle Rock, very expensive, but a lot of really cool acts coming this year. And
you're a tough date. Look, honey, we got great seats, but I thought we were going to get VIP backstage. I mean, not saying these are bad, but wow, really? These cost me $500 a piece. Yeah, these aren't wrong. These aren't bad, but I really thought we were going to be getting a meet and greet with the band.
So for a radio girl, you don't go to a concert unless you go to a concert, right? I mean, what's the point of it? I'm not doing that. Putting myself in the throngs of people in the far back. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve at 888-TAX-STEAL. Check him out online, moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson? Who's Mark Thompson? Who's Mark Thompson? Use Mark Thompson. Use Mark Thompson. Use Mark Thompson. Use Mark Thompson.
Well, thank you for that smattering of recorded applause, everyone. That is really the thing that brings me to life on Monday. Yes. Terrific. We got the full crew for you. Everybody showed up, which is always good. Never know. There are a myriad of excuses, but everybody showed up anyway. So we've got, of course, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
Albert is here, and Kim,
how are
you just
you?
heard, and Tony makes it all happen.
Thanks, Tony.
Technically, we had a technical problem even before the show started. Tony handled it right away. So very, yeah. It's
thanks, Tony.
Yeah, very, very cool. What angered you, Tony?
Well, Tony, what angered you?
Yeah, really. Exactly.
Oh, so many things.
Smash the like button like a boss, and we will continue. We'll acknowledge a bunch of people. Bottom of the hour. I really do want to get to a couple of things that really jumped out of me. Yes, I have a big law and disorder segment, but in the United States of guns, I couldn't let the weekend and the new week pass without at least acknowledging some bizarre gun cases again. So if you'll indulge me, I will just quickly get to that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The shooting of a teacher, with that gun that a 6-year-old child had. I think it an amazing fact that we in this country have so many guns everywhere that this Newport News teacher is shot by a 6-year-old in her class. It's a first grade classroom. And this kid, 6 years old, shoots the teacher. Now, I think she's in, they were life-threatening injuries. She's hospitalized, but I believe she is now in stable condition. Kim, you can give me the latest. But the shooting took place during an altercation between the teacher and the student. Those are all the details we have. No students were injured, and the 6-year-old was taken into custody. I mean, it's just it's utter insanity. And then I ask you what you do with that child. I mean, we can have
that's a first grader. I mean, that's a small child.
Right. So, again, how a 6-year-old got the gun, exactly what the altercation was. This is a part of this case that we just don't know. But the utter ubiquity, of guns, the fact that they're everywhere and so accessible and not protected in households the way they should be, right, with gun safes and these sorts of things.
Yeah.
There are responsible gun owners, and they, I'm sure, look at a case like this and go, wow, this is all insanity.
So she's being identified as Abigail Zwerner. She's a first grade teacher at Rich Neck Elementary in Newport News. And she is now awake and talking with family and in stable condition. But you're correct when you're talking about who's liable here. And legal experts say the kid's parents could be charged in this case.
Yeah. I hate to say it because it will destroy a family, but you have to hold them to account. They must be held to account. You cannot have firearms so available that your 6-year-old didn't just pick up the gun in the house and point it at someone and shoot it. That's a tragic enough accident. They took the gun from the house and went to the classroom, got into a fight with the teacher, and shot her. For that, you will be held responsible.
And it wasn't an accident.
No.
It wasn't like the gun, as far as we know, the gun didn't accidentally go off. That kid was mad and opened fire.
Yeah, the kid understood that the way to settle this altercation is by shooting someone.
Now, a 6-year-old child, you could argue, doesn't understand the ramifications of death, doesn't really understand death is forever, or what hurting someone means, or what shooting, you could say that they don't have a full understanding of all that. So it's different, I think, when a 6-year-old shoots someone than, say, a 13-year-old, still a child, but with a much better understanding of what happens.
I agree. I can also argue that different people have different understandings of what death is. You know, I can make that argument, but I accept that just in the chronology of life, that somebody who is very young like that has no sense of the ramifications of most things, you know.
Right.
But so the 6-year-old, I put to the side for a moment. The parents will be held responsible and should be held responsible. And on some level, this 6-year-old has a perverse sense of the world right now. I leave it to others to explain to me how that can be, you know, somehow how that child can be rehabilitated, if you want to think of it that way, or otherwise informed to create a better person. Right now, I'd say that child is, you know, in trouble in terms of the way that child views the world. That's just one of the gun cases. I'll give you, and I just want to quickly mention a couple of others, because this is, again, in our country, it's just a weird thing. The bump stock ban. Remember after that Las Vegas shooting where all those people were massacred, there was a bump stock ban. That was considered sort of like a baby step towards some kind of gun control. It wasn't even considered that big a deal. It was instituted after that gunman in Vegas massacred dozens of people. And now the bump stock ban has been struck down by a federal appeals court. A federal appeals court in New Orleans, this happened after we got off the air on Friday. They struck down this ban. It was a 13-3 ruling at the 5th U.S. District Court of Appeals. It's the latest on this bump stock issue. It's likely to be decided at the Supreme Court level. So again, you know, this is a country where there are a lot of guns, and they try to make even modest restrictions such that, in this case, these bump stocks, which help the gun, I guess, fire in sort of a semi-automatic way. You people who are gun people understand this better than I do. You can discharge more bullets more quickly. They were successful in getting that ban put in place, but now that ban has been overturned. And finally, the homes of 5 elected Democratic officials in New Mexico shot up. Yeah, gunfire hitting offices and homes of 5 elected Democratic officials. Nobody injured in the shootings. They're being investigated by local and federal officials in Albuquerque. They come during a sharp rise in the threats to members of Congress, of course, in 2 years after supporters of President Trump attacked the U.S. Capitol, sent lawmakers running for their lives. There's a sense that, you know, you can vigilante this whole political thing. So these Democratic lawmakers and Democratic officials had their offices and homes shot up. Wild, huh? Now, I wanted to ask you, Tony, did you get the video opens, the graphic opens that they just did?
Yes, for the Law and Order stuff?
For Law and Disorder, yeah.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
Oh, very, very cool. So what's happened is we are, you know, trying to evolve the show to these different places, as I think I mentioned to you. And one of the things we're trying to do is give you, with some of these opens and some of these used to be just audio elements, give you some video elements too. It's a little thing, but because we're on YouTube, we have it. And I like to be forthcoming about and just give you a sense of how the show's evolving. That's why I share this stuff with you, the audience. But so we just got these in, and this is their big debut. So we will start here. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Something. I kind of like it. Yeah. I say thumbs up on the open. So nice job. We had to pay money for that graphics package, so please say something nice. Yes, exactly. I want to start with a caper. A mysterious New York City trio makes off with $300,000 in Brink's truck heist after distracting the driver and stealing a duffel bag filled with cash.
What is wrong with these Brinks drivers?
I
Come
know.
on now.
You had one job type thing. Am I right?
This is kind of, the hiring practices are really being called into question.
If you're watching right now, you can see, and maybe in replay or if you're listening on the podcast, you can find this. You can see someone, this is in a New York City corner, running across the street. That is the guy with the heist. We've got a yellow box around him. Okay, so you can see. Police say two men approached the truck driver for help while another stole the duffel bag. This happened just after we got off the air on Friday. The bag contained $300,000 in cash. It was left unattended on the armored truck's bumper, according to officials. Yes.
What?
I know. It is.
Let me
just put this $300,000 down on the bumper while I help you.
I mean, doesn't that smack of an inside situation? That's.
It does. It does.
Didn't you kind of grow up with people always saying, "Ooh, it's an armored truck"? People, they're very well protected. Like you never try to steal no one would ever try to steal anyone from a Brinks armored truck because they're armed and they're, this is not where you would want to steal from. This is, whatever. Well, now with the jewelry heist in California and the money left on the bumper, their whole security system is being called into question. I think once you start seeing these lapses in security, it's like, well, maybe the Brinks truck isn't so well protected. Maybe it is the place to go for an infusion of cash.
Yeah,
I'm not advocating theft. I'm just saying.
Right.
People are starting to call in already.
Right. I am getting a lot of people saying this is definitely an inside job, totally inside job. It does smack Kim, says Julie. Totally agree with Kim. A lot of people are saying that.
I mean, who's going to leave $300,000 on the bumper? I don't even leave my purse on the seat of my car when I walk away. Come on now.
3 suspects were involved in this, the 2 distracting the guy and the one who fled. And they all fled on foot, and they're still on the run from the cops. So,
Really?
So far, it was a successful caper.
Jesus.
Porn star Ron Jeremy
Oh, he's gross.
on trial for rape,
Mm-hmm.
but he will not be tried now. He was to have been tried. He's in custody. He has dementia,
Oh.
and he's appeared in more than 1,700 X-rated films since the 1970s. He was ordered to undergo psychiatric exams ahead of a trial on multiple charges against 21 different women and girls.
His whole thing was that he had a giant penis, right? That was his whole claim to fame.
Right. Which in that business, I guess, makes you, pretty popular.
Unless you're a rapist, in which case.
Yeah, well, that's a different business. That's not the business. That's other stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, he literally apparently is unable to recognize people. The defendant will be declared incompetent to stand trial. His prognosis for improvement is not good, according to the LA County Deputy District Attorney. If he does not improve, he will not be able to be tried for his crimes. Because criminal proceedings are suspended as long as he is incompetent, we also cannot get a guilty plea from him or discuss other matters to get justice for the victims in this case. So it's sort of sad for so many who have stepped up. A suspected burglar is arrested at Billie Eilish's home in Highland Park.
That's scary.
Her childhood home in Highland Park was the victim of a burglary. And they did get the suspect arrested on suspicion of burglary at the home. Unclear if he was found inside when police arrived. Eilish, 21, and her brother, musician Phineas, grew up in the home. They don't live there anymore. And finally, a second doctor is arrested for the role in Capitol riot. They finally caught up with Jacqueline Sterer, MD. She allegedly punched a police officer while storming the U.S. Capitol. So here we are on the 2-year anniversary-ish of the U.S. Capitol riot. and she's from Ashland, Oregon. And she was arrested on 8 counts, including charges for civil disorder and assaulting a police officer during the Capitol breach. Pretty crazy. And finally, a robbery at gunpoint. I gave you the big heist. That was the Brinks heist, okay? It involved 3 people with the distraction, and they got away with $300,000. This is a lower grade heist. Happened at a Subway sandwich shop on Friday night, just after we got off the air. Guy goes in with a gun. This is in the Los Angeles area of North Hollywood. Subway sandwich shop. One of my favorite places is Subway sandwich shops. He goes in with a gun. He demands all the money from the register. And he asked for what? A turkey sandwich. Yes, I didn't make it up. A turkey sandwich. I need all the money in the register, and then I need that turkey sandwich. And don't go light on the turkey this time.
Did he pay for the turkey sandwich with the money that he stole, or did he also steal the turkey sandwich?
Yes, they threw in the turkey sandwich as part of the big heist. That, my friends, is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Well, it happens. What can I tell you? That's the rundown. Heist to heist.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
In the next half hour coming up, I've got an Alzheimer's drug that they say shows promise. We'll talk about it in greater detail. Right now, I want to welcome him. He is Steve Moskowitz, not only a CPA, but a tax attorney. I mean, a guy who can really help you and represent you legally with the government and any other situation involving your taxes or business. And we talk a lot about business, Steve. I just feel as though there's even government money that we've talked a lot about. We talked about ERC, government money that is given to small business people affected. I know a lot of people don't even think that they qualify for that kind of money because they check the internet. There's a lot of internet expertise going on, and that's a real mistake, I think.
You know, doctors talk about internet cancer. I have a lot of clients that are doctors that say that. And basically, when you go to the internet to diagnose what's wrong with you, say a hangnail, when you're done, you figure out you're dying from some horrible disease. And we haven't even talked about other things, like if somebody's going into business, maybe the solution to their problems will be getting an SBA loan, which is generous with giving out money with great terms. And you'll need some financial information and things there. So, I mean, we never even talked about that because oftentimes people go into business, they borrow money. You say, well, okay, if you are going to borrow money, you want to borrow from somebody to lend it to you. And the SBA is a lot more generous than the typical bank and great terms. So, I mean, there's just a plethora of things. And, you know, part of it is we've been around for 30 years and we deal with these things. And part of what we say is, well, look, you know, you were thinking about X. You're not the first guy that thought of X. And if you do X, that's a problem. But if you do Y, you might find that Y is a lot better. So, I mean, there's just so much, not to mention, you know, all the regular services we do.
Yeah, I mean, the complexities are real. And as you say, you know, you need a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. There's that adage. And I think that it really plays itself out, particularly in this world in which you operate, when you're trying to set up a business, when you're making some changes in a business, when you get letters from the IRS and the government. It's just so, I think it's a thicket of problems if you don't have someone who really can Sherpa you through the whole thing. That person is Steve Moskowitz. He is 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. Hey, look, he's our only sponsor, exclusive sponsor, and he's an elite sponsor at that. He is I mean, I just think of all and I've talked about this before, Steve, you know, we could end up with so many lesser organizations who we would, you know, have as part of the show. We're so proud to have you on the show because your work is, you know, just really top drawer, 30 plus years doing it in the Bay Area. So again, Steve Moskowitz, 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 You can reach him at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL. Let's have a great year together, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And Mark and Kim, it's my honor and pleasure to be part of your show.
No, it's awesome. Thank you. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim's news, and then I will share this Alzheimer's approval that came down from the government. Also some COVID news as well coming up. Then I have some pretty big news out of the Western U.S. I mean, it's going to affect a lot of people. And if I have time, I don't think I'm going to have time, Albert. I was going to do a little mini That's Rich.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You might be able to do it. We got a lot to do. So, all right. Smash the like button like a boss. Come on now. Smash it for Kim. Smash that like button for Albert.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it for Tony. Smash it for all the kids.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? Absolutely smash.
All right. It's the Mark Thompson Show. Kim's news, and then we get into some big announcements.
I love it. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Tony, can I get a little help showing this video? I'm trying to screen share. This is from a video on Twitter. It is Highway 152 at Corralitos Creek. And look at the water just rushing past there. Yeah, a lot of streams, a lot of rivers around the Bay Area are reaching capacity and ready to push over their banks. So there have been, look at that house back there. Oh no. A lot of people are being asked to leave areas because of this imminent threat of flooding. And these are for smaller streams and tributaries around the Bay Area. So pay attention to the warnings. Make sure that if you live near a waterway that you're checking today, because this is definitely going to be a problem. Okay, I'll move on to some pictures now. Thank you for that, Tony. I appreciate the help with that. See, Tony's always there for us. You just gotta love him. I had some pictures sent from Mark Thompson listener Natalie. Her husband works for a solar company, and they send teams out to check on people's homes and do some data gathering at people's homes. This one, she said, is in San Martin, where you can see people driving right into the floodwaters there. Other pictures she sent were from San Luis Obispo, where you can see pictures of flooded cars. Here's another one. Look at that car. People drove right into it. So yeah. That's from Natalie. Thank you so much, Natalie, for watching the Mark Thompson Show today and sending in photos. You can send your storm pictures to me, kimmcallister@gmail.com, 2 M's, 2 C's, 2 L's, and I'd love to show them. But this is just a little bit of what's going on the Central Coast in the San Luis Obispo area, and again, San Martin and far reaches of the South Bay. I do want to let you know that the storms are still lining up to hit California, and we're still seeing some flooding, especially in Guerneville at the Russian River, which is expected to crest later on today. This is consumers feeling better about the economy this year with all the money. A New York Federal Reserve survey shows the one-year inflation outlook fell to 5%, the lowest level since July of 2021. The figure indicates progress in fighting inflation, but it's still more than double the federal government's goal. This is Jair, his name, Jair. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Jair Bolsonaro. He is the former president of Brazil, hospitalized in Florida. The news comes after hundreds were arrested in Brazil for storming government buildings to protest his election defeat. Since then, the protests, some Democratic lawmakers have called on President Biden to extradite Bolsonaro. So this is kind of an ongoing thing. But again, he is hospitalized in Florida, that according to Brazilian media. And former President Trump once again taking aim at a lawmaker. This time it's Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and his allies. In a post on Truth Social, Trump called on Republicans to challenge McConnell and other GOP senators who back the leader in primaries. Trump criticizing McConnell for supporting the $1.7 trillion spending bill that passed late last year, saying he pushes through anything that Democrats want. God forbid there should be any type of, consensus or meeting of the minds in Washington, D.C. And this is Bob Saget, of course, the comedian and actor being remembered a year after his death. It was a year ago today. He died after accidentally hitting the back of his head in a hotel room in Florida. The 65-year-old comedian was best known for his role, of course, as Danny Tanner on the hit sitcom Full House. Oh, that's kind of a sad
So they're
situation.
doing a memorial service? Is that what you mean when he's being remembered?
No, just remembered generally, I think, in the media for it being a year after he died.
It's just a general remembrance.
It's a general remembrance.
Bob was really a friend, and
yeah. I figured you'd have a Bob Saget story.
Yeah, well, he's a friend to all. I don't want to make it sound so many people claim Bob Saget as a friend, but he really, he was a pal, and he'd been to my house and this kind of thing. So he was that kind of friend. But I'm just saying that the circumstance of his passing so bizarre and sad, and I still can't. It's weird. I still can't really believe he's gone. But so I appreciate the fact that you kind of memorialize him in your own way by saying, "Hey, he's it's
a
been
year
a
ago
year
today."
Yeah.
What did they call it? A Yarzite?
Yard site, right? Yard site or yard site, right? Exactly. That's what in the Jewish faith, right?
Mel Gibson.
Speaking of anti-Semites,
Mel Gibson.
About a Jewish term.
I picked this picture because his smile seemed a little wicked to me. Mel Gibson will not have a starring role at this year's Mardi Gras in New Orleans. After all, organizers rescinding the actor-director's invitation to appear as co-grand marshal on a parade float because of protests. The Anti-Defamation League, as well as several local Jewish groups, cited a history of anti-Semitic remarks made by the Braveheart star.
Yeah.
So there will be no Mardi Gras for you, Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a complicated guy. Really too bad. He was so very talented. Really is a shame.
I think for a long time, people, especially after he lost his marbles, people stopped watching Mel Gibson movies. I think at least it seemed like that. And lately it seems like he's trying to come on back in.
I have to say I don't think his movies have suffered at all as a result of any controversy. I have just the opposite. I wish I could remember some of the films he had done. Maybe Albert, you can check it, but he self-produced and self-financed a bunch of films that did incredibly well. There was one about Jesus. There was one about I don't know.
Google it.
Exactly. Thank you. But the point is that what I'm trying to say is he may socially have been outcast from Hollywood, but I don't think commercially his films have suffered at all.
Personally,
Passion of the Christ was not his, I don't think. Passion of the Christ was, I thought that was Martin Scorsese, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought he had something to do with it.
Temptation of Christ was Christ films for 500, please, Alex.
Those Jesus movies,
Yeah.
But I guess there was a time when he was in all the action flicks where I'd be like, "Oh, a Mel Gibson movie."
Oh, me too.
Awesome.
I loved it. Yeah.
And then after the whole breakdown thing where he kind of showed his true colors, I didn't feel that excitement anymore. A Mel Gibson movie.
So you're saying in your house you would kind of follow?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, and since I'm doing the newscast, it's my opinion that matters. This is an opinionated newscast. There's no fairness in media up over here. No, we're not doing that. Mel Gibson. So he's not going to be in Mardi Gras. He's not going to do
it. This is Albert has now found the Mel Gibson. Are these the films?
A general Google search, and this is what came up: Online Bandit, Hot Seat. He's busy. There's a lot of movies here, all saying 2022.
Those are the recent ones he's talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Keep going though. What did he do? What were the ones that he did before that?
There's anything there float your boat? I don't think so.
He's he's a very talented guy. I mean, I mean, you can say what you want. He seems to me like he's got a lot of hate in him. I don't know what that is, and I think he might have been filled with some. But anyway, I didn't expect we were going to do a lot of Mel Gibson. I would have read up more on his.
Doesn't he have like 15
I'm sure there's a Mel
kids?
Gibson expert in the chat that could help us out.
Yes, and maybe there was already one.
He has 9 kids.
Well, that's
yeah.
What?
I'm surprised he doesn't have his own show on TLC with having 9 kids.
That's right. He may be just a heartbeat away from that.
Mel Gibson and 9 kids. That sounds like a great pitch for TLC.
Yeah, that's right.
His son looks almost like him. Check this out. I'll see if I can show it to you. Yeah, they always have those celebrities that with their kids that look just like them or whatever. His son really does look like him. I'll just see if I can share it with you guys.
Son looks a little like Joe Box, I heard. Is that
Joe Box and little Anthony?
Yeah, a little
I have it up there. See if we can't show it.
Oh yeah, he does look like him,
doesn't he? Look just like him?
He has a little he looks a little like James Caan's kid too.
Yeah, because it's the slicked back hair.
Yeah, maybe it's a slicked back hair, yeah. Anyway.
I know.
All
same
right.
nose, same everything. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve's the one to call. 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also peruse his website. It's moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What's up, kids? We are in the home stretch. So appreciate your support of the show, however you do it. I love that you subscribe, that you hit the notification bell that will tell you whenever we have a new video, and we'll do videos in the new year that will be beyond just the live show. So if you want to know about those videos, make sure you hit the notification bell on YouTube so you'll be aware of it. We're also going to stream out to a few other platforms, but this is our home turf, and we're so glad that you have found it. And, none of these plans can come together without your support. So I appreciate all the ways you support us: super stickers, super chats, and Patreon and PayPal. And yes, Tony has been tasked with increasing the names and adding to the names on our crawl at the end of the show. All of you who support the show are on that credit list at the end of our show, and those who have contributed a little bit more, you can tell by Tony's expression, he does make those names a little bit bigger.
Thanks, Tony. I'll update it tonight. It'll be updated for tomorrow.
It'll be updated, but he's
445 names.
So
updated tomorrow.
If you want to be on that list,
every one of them wonderful. I love you all, but
you go to Patreon. Okay, you'll go to themarkthompsonshow.com. You'll go click through to Patreon. You can support us that way, or you can go to PayPal, support us that way. Every single one of those names, Tony makes sure gets on that list.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah,
it'll be done right.
There you go. All right, I've a couple of things I wanted to mention to you from the world of medicine, and I'm always interested in Alzheimer's because I think it affects so many of us, and more, and there are mysteries around the brain, as you know. But the FDA is I told you that story. I told you the story on the radio. I mean, I detailed, I think, dedicated an entire segment to it, as I recall, the flaws with some of the Alzheimer's drugs, and one of the Alzheimer's drugs that got FDA approval. This is a couple of years ago. The problem with that was that there was really a paucity of data that really showed that it would made any difference, that it was any good.
I'm digging you for paucity, yeah.
But there was very little in the way of data on that. Well, now the FDA has approved another Alzheimer's drug that shows some progress in moderately slowing cognitive decline in the early stages of the disease, and that's not an incidental point. They say you have to administer this drug early. The drug is called Leqembi. It's Leqembi. And Leqembi was developed by a Japanese pharmaceutical company. They also developed the first symptomatic treatment for Alzheimer's 25 years ago, they say. Now, let me tell you this right away. And this will probably come as no surprise to you. This drug is not cheap. It will cost $26,500 a year to use Leqembi. It has the potential to be a commercial blockbuster, but only if Medicare can be convinced to pay for it. And unless Medicare changes the way it pays for drugs like Leqembi, it probably will be a very slow rollout, because you need buy-in from Medicare to really make stuff take off, right?
Yep.
But the U.S. is the first regulatory approval of Leqembi globally, and it is a major step forward. It'll be co-marketed with a Cambridge, Massachusetts biotech company called Biogen. You know them from COVID vaccine stuff, I think, also, right? Biogen, they are the ones, though, who were part of that first Alzheimer's treatment, the one that had a nasty launch. Aduhelm is what it was called. Anyway, Alzheimer's experts say Leqembi, previously known by its scientific name Lecanemab or something, provides modest benefits for patients with mild cognitive impairment or early-stage Alzheimer's. It carries some risks for swelling and bleeding in the brain that will require monitoring, but Alzheimer's hasn't seen real medical progress in decades, so even with limitations, the drug is groundbreaking and a reason for cautious optimism, they say. I'm looking at other data that might be of interest to you. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff here, like this is going to be a breakthrough. I've treated so many patients for Alzheimer's. I know how, and you know how horrible and destructive and how debilitating it is, but also how it brings families to their knees, you know. And it's not a cure for Alzheimer's, they say. A large clinical trial published in November showed the treatment slowed the cognitive and functional decline of patients with early-stage Alzheimer's by 27% relative to the placebo group. So that's not nothing, you know. In the 18-month study, the drug reduced levels of this beta amyloid. That's the protein that gets in the brain that they've now identified as part of the Alzheimer's profile. You take it via an IV every 2 weeks. The FDA has granted accelerated approval to this drug, a faster path to the market based on preliminary evidence that the drug eliminates this toxic amyloid. So, look, I have to say I'm encouraged by any movement here. I'm always skeptical. FDA approval that's fast-tracked. I think there can oftentimes be a big pharmaceutical push. I think the first Alzheimer's drug, which also got FDA approval and really didn't have anything in the way of convincing clinical data, that got a FDA approval largely because they had decades of research that went into it and all that money that went into it, and somehow that pushed it over the finish line. It's like, yeah, they have decades of research and money on it, but the research and money shows that it's not really that effective. That was the last one. So the study has been restricted to people with mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's. And I say they have shown it to be in the 20% range, 20 to 27%, as I was mentioning to you, effective in reducing that amyloid protein in the brain. So that's
pretty significant. 20%?
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. They advise physicians to take additional caution when using this because of bleeding in the brain that can happen. So if you're taking it with other drugs, drug thinners, this kind of thing, this is where complications may arise as well. So this is, really you have to be very careful, because if you end up with bleeding and these micro hemorrhages that occur, in the brain with all these small vessels, you could end up in a much worse place than you started. So, but nonetheless, I wanted to share that with you. Do I have time for one more story, Albert? Or what do I do? You tell me, Albert. I wanted to do. You tell me, Albert. I'm confused today. Please.
We could fit in one more story, but
Albert,
we also have super chats to shout out.
Oh, we have super chats to shout out. So can I? What should I do? Super chats first, and then the last story, or should I do the last story and then
Let's
super
do the
chat?
last story and get to the super shout outs.
All right, I think that's a very good.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I did want to. I mean, we had some passings too. I wanted to get to those. Gosh.
You want to do the one that's rich story maybe to end the show?
Yeah. All right. Will you put that up top? And then I will, in the meantime, I do want to mention one thing. I mean, I'll mention other people who passed away. I don't mean to bum anybody out, but it's just certain things jump out at you. And so we'll do that later in the week. But the guy who's Buster from Dave and Buster's, he died. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The co-founder of Dave and Buster's passes away at 72. So the big thing with Dave and Buster's is that they put together food, beverage, sports, and gaming under one roof. Before that, they weren't ever coexisting in one place, pretty much. So James Buster Corley, one of the founders of Dave and Buster's, which offers a small dose of Las Vegas by combining a restaurant and an extensive video arcade, they say. He died in his home of Dallas, 72nd birthday. He died on his 72nd birthday. So Dave and Buster's now has more than 150 locations in North America. They combine these beloved activities under one roof. Watch some sports, eat a burger, play a game, and unlike Chuck E. Cheese, the longtime birthday destination for kids, Dave & Buster's would prove its appeal to adults who like arcade games, air hockey, racing simulators.
Yeah, I once met in Milpitas. I met Colin Kaepernick at a Dave & Buster's. Yeah.
That's a very strong meet.
It was when he was the backup quarterback for Alex Smith, and nobody knew quite who Colin Kaepernick was at the time. I'm pulling up a picture as we're.
Oh, that's a very cool story. The first Dave & Buster's location opened in 1982 in a 40,000 square foot warehouse in Dallas, Texas. It was named Dave & Buster's, not Buster and Dave's, because of a fateful coin flip. They literally flipped a coin to see whose name should go first. So it could have been called Buster and Dave's, but it's Dave's and Buster's.
Is that them? They look like just two regular guys.
No, that's Albert and Colin
No,
Kaepernick.
that's Dave and Buster, so Dave is on the right. That's
Like,
me
who
and
the
Colin
hell's that? Okay.
Oh,
It's me and
anyway,
Colin Kaepernick at Dave and Buster's.
yeah, that's very cool. Look at you, Albert.
Look
You
at
got
that.
a couple of athletes.
No one knew who he was at the time, too. So I was like, "Wow, are you Colin Kaepernick?" He said, "Yeah." And I asked him for a picture. Then people started crowding around.
Oh, that's
Do you know who I am?
Yes.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah, right. Very well done, Albert. Yeah, good stuff. Well, as I say, the co-founder of Dave & Buster's, James Buster Corley, passes away at the age of 72.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And now I want to thank those who are critical to keeping this show on the air. I mean, sadly, without you, we're like a crowd-funded show. Without you, we don't stay on the air. So thank you. It's a weird thing to have to ask for donations, but my pal John, I had lunch with him. He's very big in YouTube and all. He says, you got to get over that. That's what this world is. It's just, you can't feel awkward about asking for support. These people will support you, but you have to ask them for it. So that's why we try to do the asks in as fun a way as we can, or in as, we don't do it all the time. Kevin Hobbs is very generous, Kevin Hobbs. I know who you are. Big Dan Ashley shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah, and I love that you're so supportive, Kevin. And I want to say, I'm not going to cry, but that is well past my cry number. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to, but I thank you for that. Wow.
I wonder what's the significance of that number, I wonder.
47. I wonder if there is a significance. He didn't put any significance there.
No.
Love you guys. Happy New Year from Tiffany MLA. What up? Big Dan Ashley shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Very, very cool. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Harry Magnan, $10. What up? And the Marcotini. Yeah. Order a Marcotini.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Harry. And Harry, you're not the Harry that's brought such shame to the crown, fortunately. There's the Red Jack. That's where you can get the Marco. You get the, I think they call it Marcotini, but maybe they call it the Marcotini. That's the Red Jack Saloon in San Francisco. If you're going to San Francisco, going to the city, that's a shot from inside.
Get your Marcotini right there at the bar.
That's our place, the Red Jack Saloon. And order a Order a Martini or a Marcotini.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Yes, give them the code word. I'm not going to cry, and they'll know you're in on the crew. Thank you for the $10. Elwin, thank you for the $4.99.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elwin. Regular viewer, still greatest name in all the world. Thank you, El. Appreciate that so much. Thanks for the support, $4.99. The Nikki Maduro show is coming up at noon. An emergency declaration for Northern California. McCarthy became speaker, but not without things getting physical on the House floor. Calls out
Lizzo.
Lizzo is calling out the cancel culture. And Nikki wins the lottery.
What?
Wow. Man. Well, that's I don't know how you can resist watching that show. That's starting right now. And Kim is part of that show, too.
Yeah.
So how can that not be great, right? Yep.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. So, Kim, stay dry, as I encourage everybody to. If you want to support us, you know all the ways to support us. But if you want to take the rest of the day off and stay dry, you can do that too. Just kick it with Nikki.
We might float away here in the North Bay.
It's pretty bad. I want to thank again Spencer Christian for stopping through. Thank David Katz for weighing in on Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. Thank Courtney for finally putting the wrap on that Idaho murder situation and also giving me some nuggets on Prince Harry. Or whatever. Is he Prince now or Duke Harry? Or yeah, he's the Prince.
He's not ready to let go of his Prince title.
He's not letting go of the title. No. Yeah. Anyway, much to do. Tomorrow's a big day.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Join us tomorrow. All the time. Bye-bye. And until tomorrow, everybody, stay dry, stay in, and bye-bye.